Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Attack of Opportunity. Today, it's my distinct pleasure to have Chelsea, otherwise known around Twitter in the multiverse as Little Red Dot. I gotta say, like, what's in a name? And when I found your profile on Twitter, now, I found you through Michael Hunt, who I recently did an interview with, but when I saw your profile with the headshots, very SNL, a little red dot there. It just blew me away. I was like, this girl is funny. I want to see her content. And now we're here interviewing you, sort of, kind of, maybe. So thank you so much for being on the show. Dottie, Chelsea, what should we?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. We actually, before I say thank you, I'm so glad to be here. You should know that actually there's a reoccurring evil lady NPC over on my channel that I play, known as Lady Dottie Rouge. And Lady Dottie Rouge is this like evil ex-wife of the king, and she just causes mayhem. So you said Dottie, and all I could think of was the evil Lady Dottie Rouge.
Well, speaking of evil, we just launched Hell's Vengeance as a one shot, and we'll have to hit up Lady Rouge for a cameo and see if you can out evil the players.
Yeah,
but
tonight, no, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on and just talk. Sometimes it's nice to like not game, not campaign. So it's always nice to just chat tabletop.
Well, we are here to start off, not just for me to attack of opportunity you and go on about my little anecdotes or like, oh yes, it reminds me about my content. No. The first question that we always love to ask our victims / guests here is, was there a defining moment for you? How did you first know that you were a geek, a gamer, a nerd, one of us?
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I started in video games, as most people do. I will not say all people, most people. I started in video games, but as a child, I grew up in a really small town in the bumbles of swamp-laden Georgia. And there was no access to comic book stores or any of that. And I remember when our local Blockbuster started renting video games. And that changed everything because I had access to stuff. So I would say one of my very first moments that I knew that there was like no going back was the moment I turned down my best friend for a sleepover because my brother's best friend had just gotten Pokemon Snap. He had just gotten the new one for N64. And I turned her down. I made up a total lie to my best friend. I was like, I don't feel good. And my brother's best friend came over and we sat and played Pokemon Snap because afterwards we could take the gaming card over to Blockbuster and print. You could print out all the pictures you took of your Pokemon from N64. That was the moment. There was no turning back.
No, if she was truly your friend, she'd be like, oh yeah, I totally understand. You go, girl. That kind of thing.
If I had said anything of the sort, it would have just been social suicide devastation for small town Chelsea.
Aw. Well, but are you still friends with this?
Actually, it's funny. I am. And so many people now look back and go, oh, this all makes so much sense now. It just all the puzzle pieces fell into place. But I would say I've been in tabletop now for about 12 years. I've been playing for about 12 years.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a confession. Remember where we were setting up and I was complimenting you on knowing your palette, how you have the baby blue sweater to go with the red hair. It's turned into green screen, and not only are you the sparkling disco queen on our video here, it's picking up some of the logo, but there's no turning back now. We're in too deep. So let's talk about, you said how long you've been, like, how long has it been? How long have you been a gamer? How many years?
Yeah, let's see. Well, like I said, you N64, that gives you some knowledge of how long I guess I've been gaming religiously since then. But in terms of tabletop, I started playing 3.5 back when I was in undergrad. And I was brought to the table by my actual fight choreography teacher. I was training in rapier and dagger fighting, like legitimate combat, and he was like, cool. You're really good with the sword. Would you like to come play you seem interested in this kind of thing. Would you like to come play Dungeons and Dragons? And so my fight choreography teacher met with a couple students in the park every Sunday. We would do weapons training, and then we would play D&D together. A few of us would hang around and play D&D, and that's how I got introduced to it. Yeah, that's where I started. That's how it all got started. I was literally fighting with steel.
No, that is cool. I'm impressed.
That's what
And I always love it when somebody comes up with like, I have a stock set of questions, and like when I get an original answer, everyone has their own story, their own journey. They're all original answers. But yeah, no, sorry, that's just cool. That's so cool.
Okay,
So cool.
it's just so weird. Yeah, and you know what's funny? Everybody's like, "Oh, so you're a LARPer?" I have never LARPed in my life. Not that I would be against it. I just, when do I have the time between the streaming?
I'm glad you brought it up because a buddy of mine does that, and I'm thinking you're telling me this, and I'm like, so you don't run around with the foam sword going hit. That's a safety thing. You gotta be full balls on to dress up and put yourself out there in the LARPing community and immerse yourself. As a fellow actor, we say we immerse ourselves into the character. Like these guys are dressing up, running around park in a medieval, like that's immersion. But you can't run around as cool as it would look, with the metal or whatever. So no, it's nothing against LARP. That is its own coolness.
Yeah, definitely nothing. I've actually been considering a VTM LARP for a while. It's just not happened. There's literally, I've learned only 24 hours in a day.
Now back to your rapier training. You were talking about like stage fighting or an actual fencing.
Not fencing. Fencing as we know it, combative fencing is
with a
skewed
foil
version of of the original multiple styles of rapier. There are multiple kinds of rapiers. For those of you that don't know, I'm trained in Spanish rapier and dagger. So they're
as in the Mongosh?
Yes, Mongosh.
So we're talking, okay, so for those that are not following us here, that's like your Four Musketeers era of weaponry with the shorter blade, the light blade.
The shorter blade. And it's a little thicker, and then you would have a dagger that's not like a boot dagger. It's actually it's not the dagger that we consider a dagger. It's actually a little longer than that, usually between like 8 to 12 inches, and it would actually be used as your parry, and it was used to stab underneath the armor, like a dense armor, like through the neck or into soft places. So you would parry with it, and then you would be able to actually because the rapier does not go through chainmail. That was not its purpose.
Cool.
So there you go.
No.
Weapons history for you.
She's proficient in two-weapon fighting, folks. Giving Dritz Darren a run for his money and just becoming more fast.
Let's be real. It's been a while since I've actually picked up a sword in that capacity. But I learned it because I was studying classical theater, and Shakespeare was where I put all my energies in undergrad. So I traveled the country for a while, and I worked for a bunch of Shakespeare companies. And you basically can't do Shakespeare unless you know how to bare minimum handle like safety and stage combat. And that's kind of how I got started. And then I started like branching out into like bow staff and bullwhip, which was kind of fun. That's why we had to go to the park, because you can't crack like a 15-foot bullwhip inside of a classroom.
It breaks the sound barrier. People at the very tip, that's why it goes crack. You want
to know something crazy? So I went to school in Savannah, Georgia. For those of you that don't know, Savannah is a swamp. It's just one of the dampest, like wettest places. The air is heavy. It's damp. You can go out to the park in the middle of summer in Savannah and crack a bullwhip, and you can see it pop the water in the air. You can see it at the end. When it pats, it actually knocks the water at the end. Very cool.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Do you still have a whip? Like that's a great video. Like that's a viral video.
Somewhere. I actually do still have a whip. It's not leather, but I do still have one. I have an.
There you go. Put on video. 10%, please. Thank you. And forgive me the idea. No, moving on. What was the? Sorry, it completely immersed me in this answer.
We got like way off topic. I told you we'd have plenty to talk about. I can always find something to talk about.
No, that's great. So you've been playing whipping, mongoshing for quite some time now.
Yes.
What made you decide to start going from the 99% content consumer to the 1% content creator, and putting yourself out there on the net? How did this happen?
Yeah, where did it all begin? Well, if it's not obvious, I was an actor for many years, and that's what brought me to Atlanta, where I'm currently located. And I went through those years right after school where you're like, what the hell am I doing with my life? I'm starving. I'm eating SpaghettiOs. I managed to talk the guy into free HBO. Like, this can't be it. I was auditioning. I had an agent. I was doing everything that the system said that I should be doing. with the I would like to think some level of talent, and was just not happy, and I couldn't really figure it out. And so went back to grad school and started working in nonprofit arts instead. And I was missing making art. But I couldn't really figure out why, because I didn't necessarily miss theater proper. And I had two friends here in Atlanta go, hey, do you want to start a D&D campaign with us? We're just going to set a mic up. We're just going to record ourselves and just release it. Like, no bells and whistles. It's nothing special about it. Like, this is just going to be our fun home thing. And we're going to turn on a mic. Here we are 3 years later, 150 episodes into a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. So I would say that that's probably where it really started. Mm-hmm. I had made a few web series with some friends and stuff, but in terms of like the tabletop content, that's where it really started. And the podcast is called North by Northwest. It's it's what I've been doing the longest, I would say. And and then when North by Northwest first released almost 3 years ago, February will be 3 years. I had another friend reach out that was like, hey, I know you have a Twitch channel, because I was making cosplay at the time for Dragon Con. My first Twitch channel was me for 2 weeks straight sanding a 3D Darth Vader helmet. No lies. There's actually the only like pinned video on my Twitch page is the first moment where I clip the mask together and get to wear it. And it's me dancing with the Darth Vader mask on, because I was so happy to have the damn thing put together. But so another friend was like, well, you've got like a mic and a camera. You know, I'm running a D&D campaign over on Encounter Roleplay. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but if you want me to play some D&D, like, I'm here for it. I've been playing for years and didn't have anybody really at the time that I was in a campaign with. And so I showed up for a one-shot like community game over there. And it only took those 3 hours and I was hooked. I was like, this is what I've been missing. Like collaborative storytelling with people from all over the world, something that I love, right? D&D, something I know that I've been doing behind closed doors, begging people to play with me for so long. An online space. It kind of clicked. And so I spent a couple seasons over there on Encounter Roleplay, and then so slowly branched out and got to the point where I really just wanted to start telling my own stories. And that's really when I made the major change on my Twitch channel from a cosplay channel to a storytelling channel.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the long and short, I guess.
No, that's good. So before we get into talking about some of the overlay stuff I have here, the void and the shadows and everything,
yep. Mm-hmm.
Where does the magic happen? Where do you actually create the content? Are you studio? Are you guys still multiple or single mic around a table? Mm-hmm. Do you do, like the Zoom chat thing like we do? Everybody's online.
Right. So the podcast is recorded in person. We do it around a table, mics, very home style. We look at and have one of the best like podcast editors ever. He's an actual acoustician for like his job, which is a scientist of sound. So I was like, guess what? You're editing the podcast. So David does all of that for us. But yeah, we play around a table. It's been, that we basically turn their dining room into our podcasting home. And then everything else that I do is here in my little nook, pretty much right behind this cam. And then any of the games that I host and play, of course, we use Zoom very similarly so that I can play with pretty much anybody. Yeah,
I gotta say, like for all the interiors, I love how you got a little Vader helmet and you've got the live, like we are live sign right behind your head there. Like yep. if you turn like we are recording live. That's for kids.
It's also got a little red dot.
Oh, it's got the little red dot. Yes. Well, you said about 3 years since your original has been going on. How long for the rest? How many different shows do you have now?
Well, I change shows out quite frequently. I tell people the easier way for me to tell you is on average I game about 25 to 30 hours a week. So you do the math on that. I mean, I play quite a lot of games. In my first year, I remember that New Year's, I put out some stat that was like I had gamed some ridiculous like 560 something hours in the latter half of the year, something like that. So I play in a lot of games.
But you GM all these games, or?
No, I play them too. So there are a couple networks that I'm just a player on. So actually, usually over on Unmade Gaming, which I know is where you had tuned into our Coriolis campaign.
With Michael Hunt.
With Michael Hunt. That's the first time I've actually GM'd over there. Usually I'm just a player on Mike's channel.
Oh, okay.
Yep. The North by Northwest podcast has been interesting because we rotate GMs every season. So we've just gotten to volume 4 of our podcast. So I'm actually the GM this current season. I GM one show kind of per month to per every 2 months on my channel, and then I'm a regular cast member as well over on the Roll For It network in a VTM campaign. And then I kind of ebb and flow. Some people ask me to come on and do, short guest roles, or like right now I'm in a Deadlands campaign, a short-lived Deadlands campaign that a friend was just like, hey, do you have to have Monday nights open? And I kind of slipped in for a couple weeks. So yeah, and then I do a couple other weird things, like over on Arvan Elleron's channel, I do a voiceover game where we play video games, and we voice characters. He like mutes it, and we voice all of the characters live, which is a lot of fun. So I do a lot of kind of random things, but in terms of tabletop, I'm pretty solid, like 30 hours a week at this point.
I'll tell you about a show that never launched, where I was playing GTA 5, and I found the mask shop, and I found this raccoon head in gray, and it's like I got the gray trench coat on, and he looked like some kind of Sly Cooper, and anyway, I was just running around just playing my campaign, like the online thing is this, and I just started mumbling to myself, because this is what DMs do. You're in the shower, you're shaving in the mirror, you're in your car, and it's the only place to be alone to test a voice, and you think about that night's game, and you're like, I'm Rizlargo, I'm Rizlargo, so you're playing a video game, and when you see people, sometimes the GM and you just starts like testing a voice with what you see. So I'm doing this like black and white film noir, like gumshoe, with this raccoon, and in the city, running around, and that was the first time it actually hit me about how much work would go into creating any content, let alone content like that. So I got to say, hats off to someone that could actually manage a 25-hour week gaming schedule. Yeah, like ours is more like 6 or 8, and then I get bogged down in editing and stuff for the rest of my 25-hour week. But no, that is very, very cool. So you're all over the place. Now, in the bio link below, when we're done, everything, like I would like the fans, I know, and listeners, yours and mine, would love a list of just about anywhere we could find you. We'll have to compile that, So let's talk about what we've got up right now. I'm looking at I see Michael Hunt and some people and yourself here. It says Void.
Void, yes, the great Coriolis campaign. Coriolis is one of those games. If you're a GM, sometimes you just pick up a gaming book and this is the game for you. Like you just are so connected with material. That's only happened a few times in my life, at least since I've branched out from Dungeons and Dragons, and Coriolis is one of those books. It really is just.
What's the genre?
It is a sci-fi RPG, tabletop RPG, and it is what I guess low sci-fi, or like not very high tech. It's not your cyberpunk, basically.
So it's like a modern tech, like a spy tech kind of sci-fi.
Think more Battlestar Galactica.
But it's happening on Earth, or you're running around spaceships?
It's only humans. So they describe it as Arabian Nights in space.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Arabian Nights in space. So you've got probably, the way that Serenity and Firefly were influenced, kind of mixed with this, like, right? Okay. But you've got it's a kind of a different cultural influence. And it's all human history. We've left Earth and we've made our way to a place called the Third Horizon. And the Third Horizon is just what it sounds like, a new kind of dawning and place for humans to thrive after.
Okay, so like kind of like The Expanse went like another galaxy.
Correct.
Got beyond our solar system. Okay.
Correct. Yep.
Cool.
And it's kind of got a really cool kind of dark history, and with the kind of Arabian Nights influence, there's even a deck of cards. Everybody worships these beings called the icons, and the deck of cards is kind of like tarot, and depending on your icon, you have the players draw a card, and the GM interprets that card like you might do a tarot deck into the story. It's very neat. It's a really beautiful game.
All right. So now, just to be clear, some things I stumble on being older generation. What you're considering in the modern term of Arabian Nights may not be what I'm thinking. So what do you mean when you say, because when I hear Arabian Nights, I think of the Thousand Tales of Al-Sharad, where a woman was captured by a sultan, and the sister showed up and tried to get her out of there by keeping the sultan entertained by telling her 1,001 tales, and these tales included Aladdin, Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
And then you have this sort of romantic Arabic overlay of the Arabian Nights. Did you see the new Disney?
Yeah. Well,
okay. So how does that translate into this dark space opera?
Yeah, Yeah, so you're looking at the aesthetic. The clothing aesthetic is still very. So I actually went back and reread Arabian Nights, right, for research, I guess you could call it, on this, because I wasn't, both from a political standpoint, but I wasn't really interested in turning this into proper cultural appropriation, right? So what I really wanted to do was go back and look at not the romanticized piece of it, but the writers literally describe it on the book cover as Arabian Nights in space. And I said, well, if that's how they describe it, then I need to go reread Arabian Nights. And so I went back and read it. And so you're getting these stories of kind of mystical things happening, right? But it's still kind of roughly grounded in the culture. And that's what I would describe. And then, of course, there's things like spacesuits mixed alongside of it. So again, I liken it to almost like to Serenity or Firefly, where you have this very kind of Chinese influence or Eastern Asian influence into the writing and the culture and the language.
Yeah, see, I take that as a throwback to the original Blade Runner, and the idea of like the cyberpunk, the mega city and the mega corporation. The two biggest business languages are English and Mandarin Chinese, and with 50 million people on the way in one country, and the combination of North America with 250 million people, they're just projecting that these languages and cultures will eventually absorb all others, and then going forth into space. And that's why when they got mad, they would switch to Mandarin instead of Spanish or what. And a lot of people don't get that. And it's like, well, this is just a sci-fi, like it's sci-fi. It's a projected maybe of fantasy in space, right?
Science fiction, yeah.
And they're trying to ground it in like a now becoming a possible then, and so many people take offense, like, oh, why is it this? It's like, no, you're kind of missing on that. Sorry, I just wanted to touch on that.
I think it's a really it's a dice pool based game, so if you like dice pools, right up your alley. It's all D6, which I think is really neat. And like I said, this is the first time in a long time where I picked up an RPG and I was like, I don't need to make up a lot of stuff. This is so rich with lore and history and inspiration just right off the page for me as a GM. So most of what I'm actually building for our Coriolis campaign is coming directly out of the material that's actually printed.
Yeah, it's like a living movie going, and you just put your guys in it.
Yep.
You know, this is the sign on the wall. These are the types of people that walk by. You can add to it, but you get the, they come dressed.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm a sandbox GM. As I've done it more and more, I've become more of a sandbox GM. And what that really means for me is like, my job is to just make sure I know what's happening in the world, and things are going to happen, and my players may never choose to come in contact with it, right? Their choices may never lead them that way, but it doesn't mean it's not happening, right? The things that happen in the background, they add the flavor and the cultural text and the things that are necessary. So when my players make good and or bad choices, it will affect them one way or the other, depending on those choices made. That's what gives autonomy to your players,
Cool. No, that's very cool. Now, speaking of playing, do you have a favorite? Like, you talked about your D&D days, and now that this book speaks to you, but either from back in the day or from right now, is there a stereotype, a class, a race, an alignment, which just personally speaks to you? It's your go-to, your favorite in, like in a video game? What is that?
Okay, well, yeah. So I've always been a druid at heart, like from start to finish. Just, I'm a druid. If I guest on your channel, more than likely I'm gonna be like, can I play a druid? Unless there's already one there. So it's always a druid for me. That was what I was, but which is funny because that wasn't actually the first class I played. The first class I played was a paladin. When the very first time I played D&D, I was very drawn to dwarfs and paladins. But as I started to play more, I was really drawn to druids. Now druids are my favorite, and I am particularly fond of the Circle of the Spore druid. I have a bit of a niche in the fungus and mushroom interest.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's
heard
why I brought up
dwarf that brews mushroom into beer, Pathfinder, 2nd edition, Age of Ashes, our biggest show with 3 dwarf brewing dwarves. You're in. Yeah. I'll just talk them into it. It's done deal. We'll have your people call my people. Anyway, with the question at hand, and moving on to the next one, let's talk about conventions. Do you and your crew cast attend them? Are there gatherings where fans can meet you and your cast, and if so, where?
Yeah, quite a lot of places. If you're local in and around the Atlanta area, you'll catch me here actually in a couple ways. I'm always at MomoCon every year, so you can always catch me there. You can always catch me at DragonCon every year, though I don't do as much tabletop at DragonCon. I moderate a lot of the celebrity panels, so you usually just see me moderating panels. but I'm there walking around in cosplay and moderating panels. And then, of course, I attend your regular Gen Con. You can catch me at Gen Con every year. I help run the Gen Con Twitch channels live over the 5 days. So I'm part of the tech crew that like behind the scenes make sure that it happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you say you moderate a celebrity panel, what does that entail?
It entails speaking with their agent so that you make sure that you don't ask any questions the celebrity doesn't want to answer live on stage. And then it requires you to sit on stage with this celebrity. Dragon Con's a very different kind of convention. For those of you that don't know, it is a everything fan convention. Like everything popular culture from start to finish, there's some probable representation. Like they have a NASA space track. Okay, like you name it and it's nerd friendly, it's there. So you're going to get everything from like TV celebrities like you might find at say Comic-Con, all the way to comic book artists and voiceover artists, just a plethora of people. They have an entire paranormal track, so we always get like ghost hunters and stuff that come in. Like it's crazy. But some of the higher tier celebrities they want proper handling and those kind of things, because you know when like I don't know, Benedict Cumberbatch walks in, everybody freaks out. So they put them on these massive stages, and you have to have somebody there that moderates the questions between the audience to the celebrity. I'm the middle person.
Okay.
So I usually come out.
How would you pull that off? Yeah, I was going to say, how would you pull that off live? Because if they literally pull someone on the audience and get them in front of a mic and they ask a question.
There are people on the floor that hand them the mic, and before they hand them the mic, they say, "What's your question?" And they go, "This is my question." And if it's appropriate or needs to be changed, they don't let them.
Okay.
And then they hand the mic over. The audience member will say, "I would like to say thank you so much for being here. I'm your biggest fan. I just want to ask you, whether or not you like werewolves or vampires more." And then, the celebrity will answer the question, and I may riff off of it and joke and laugh and keep the audience hyped and pumped. That's my job. And then I'll be like, "Next question."
Oh yeah. Okay. No, I feel you. I gotcha.
Yep.
There's a lot of behind the scenes controlling that goes on, and people,
so much.
It's necessary, and a lot of people get offended. So maybe we shouldn't, go on about this. But there's a Steve Martin movie where he plays an evangelist, and they show you his crew, and people are showing up to this pavilion tent where he's going to do his show. Right. And as people are coming through the gate, he has handlers, and they ask them questions, and they get to know them, and they put them in the right place and stuff. And it's all part of the, and it's more of a crowd control, make sure things go smoothly. People should not take this personally. If you're a screaming fanboy, they'll put you in the back so they can hear you all the way to the back. If you're cute and cuddly, you go up front so you look out on camera.
And part of it too is like some of the actors that come in are in these NDA clauses. They can't talk about like ends of seasons that haven't launched yet and things like that too. So I'm also there to assure that if a question is asked that has been made very clear by an agent that cannot be talked about, that we go around it. Or if somebody asks something like, let's say we get somebody up there that's like really this happens all the time, anti the actor, like I don't know, let's say I'm interviewing Joaquin Phoenix and they don't like the fact that he's a method actor and put people in danger in his last movie, right? They're going to get up there, say that they're going to say one question and then ask another, and the question's going to be, why do you put your other cast members in danger? And then it's my job live in front of everybody to mitigate for the celebrity so that they don't have to put their PR place in put their PR status in a nightmare system. It's my job to buffer that.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Actually, I'd like to retract one of my statements. I didn't mean to imply that you had to be beautiful and cute cuddly to come on camera. What I meant was photogenic. And every type of person, any race, color, creed, and body size can look better on camera than someone else that looks great in person. There is just something chemistry about certain people, and they come from every walk of life, every body type, every color and creed. And to give you an example that I know what I'm talking about, okay, my wife does not photograph well. You look at her in person, hi person, great. You put her on camera or put her, on film or whatever, and you're just kind of like, well, let's do this again. Let's do this again. Always fuzzy, always out of frame. The woman's cursed. It's just a thing, right? And then there's someone like Son of a Rose from the Dragon Age podcast, the Kestrels. and just someone that's naturally photogenic. Good day, bad day, fell out of bed day,
Right.
you know, and type of thing. This is what I'm talking about, where people get used to finding people like that. I mean, they might even have a camera on you when you walk in the door, and you know, they shuffle A to B, that type of thing. It's a small thing I'm touching on, and I'm going on too much about it. But like I said, you got to be careful what you say, and you know, this is going to go up with you. Anyway, getting back to things at hand. What about social media? Now we know that you are Little Red Dot on Twitter, and we know that you're associated with a couple shows with good old Mikey, from Unmade Gaming. But where can we find you in like the social media outlets? Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, you can find me also on Facebook and Instagram as little_red_dot, but with 2 T's. And here's why. So I learned much later, after I took on the moniker Little Red Dot for artistic purposes, long before I started streaming, that Little Red Dot is actually a slang term for the city of Shanghai.
Oh.
Right. So when I got out there to like claim my Instagram and claim my Facebook, Little Red Dot in just regular words was kind of already taken. So I added the underscores, but by the time I got to Facebook and Instagram, I had to add an extra T. So just know, if you go searching for me on Facebook or Instagram, hopefully by the time you just start typing Little Red Dot, I'll pop up. But if not, add an extra T.
It can happen. I thought my last name, Ball, was pretty original. And put Jeff Ball. How many can there be? How many could there be content creating? Do you know why my moniker is GM Jeff Ball, all in caps? No, I'm not shouting. It's because there's this great GM out there who does shows and stage or whatever, and he does table for one, and it's one GM. His name is Jeff Ball, and he has one guest, and he role plays one-on-one. And he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. So when I first started creating accounts, I started getting his fans and stuff hitting me up. And I just I'm not that guy.
That's not me.
It's all back in the day when the police came to my door and I had to prove my middle initial. No, I'm Jeff D. Ball, not Jeff criminal guy that had a carpentry business and left all kinds of people hanging with their checks. That's not me, you know, pulling up my mail, you know, that kind of thing. I thought I had an original name, you know. So without thinking, I just like, well, what flows off the tongue? What goes good with Jeff? You know, Mark is Markiplier. You know, Jeff Ball.
Oh, yeah,
and it's like, well, GM Jeff Ball. It kind of flows. Yep. So like, okay, and it's like, do it in caps, right? And the first time someone was nice enough to put me on a Twitter feed, like a Follow Friday, and I'm looking through and my name popped up because it looks like I'm screaming my name. I'm like, right. Oh God, I'm what have I done?
That's awesome.
And so, like I said, sometimes there's no taking back what you do on the internet. You just got to own it. So I'm GM Jeff Ball.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, own it.
You just got to own it, because you just look weird and confused and not pro if you just do what I'm doing now. Anyway, speaking about professionalism.
No.
Do you have merchandise for these shows? Let's talk about
that's interesting.
Your other show, The Shadows. I got posted here. We totally skipped that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I got a few. So there's the Coriolis campaign. I believe Mike, the Unmade Gaming channel, has some merch. The Roll For It channel, where I do the VTM campaign, we're in our second season, called The Silence of Shadows, and they do have merch for that show specifically. So I believe it's up. But if you take a look, the art there of like all of our vampire characters together can be printed, and then their logo, which is pretty cool too. It's like the 6-sided die with their logo on it, is also available for their merch. So that merch is available. Mike, I believe, has merch. And then my channel, actually, I don't have merch. One of the reasons that I don't have merch is because one of the things that I'm very passionate about on my channel is we call ourselves as a group, the Dot Lot. And on the Dot Lot, it's about supporting one another. So during our games, there's only, instead of having a bunch of incentives and you give a D20 here, you pull a wild magic card there, it's a single bar that everybody tries to fill together. And when the bar fills together, then something in the game happens. But all of those funds go back into paying the casts that come to my channel. So this past year, I'm very proud to announce that I have started paying my casts.
So how does that work specifically? How do fans fill the bar? You're talking about, so you have to forgive me, because like I started podcasting, which is audio. We've only broken into video, and Twitch is very new to us. We only just made affiliate, and it's a whole bunch of business and homework that I need to really read up on. But so the audience is giving you bits.
They're giving me bits or tips, which are basically just donations. And I use Streamlabs is my program of choice. And they now have the Streamlabs OBS, which is all like interconnected. And Streamlabs has a way for you to add like a donation bar, you know, like you do for any fundraiser. And so for every night, like you probably saw it on our Coriolis campaign. Actually, Mike was inspired to bring it to his channel based on the success of it on mine. Now, a lot of other RPG channels choose to do like number tier incentives, right? So you give $5 and you can choose who you give a nat 20 to. Or you give $10 and you can give somebody advantage or disadvantage. Or at $50, you can drop a monster into the play. And I found, as much as I love those, and it does cause a lot of chaos, part of my channel and the brand is about storytelling. And as much as I love my audience helping me tell a story, I also don't like them. Like I remember one Sunday Fun Day I ran on my channel. We had so many donations come in that it was just like everybody ended up drawing 2 wild magic cards a pieces and everything fell apart. You know, it's like at what point is it too much? And we're only just laughing now at ourselves and not really telling a story anymore. So I wanted to go back to kind of the core values that I held for both myself and my channel and what I really wanted the Dot Lot to be about. And that was about collaborative storytelling. So I thought, why, instead of saying, well, your $5 buys this, why isn't it just a single bar that we all fill together? You know, $50 for every show. So every new session has a $50 bar. And regardless of whether or not we fill it, the cast gets to split it evenly. So yeah, and that's worked very successfully. It's allowed me to really up my game in terms of paying my cast and using that in tandem with Patreon funds to make sure that may not be, you know, paying the most of other networks out there, but I want to make sure people know that I'm appreciative of their time. And, you know, yeah. And I let people at the end, you know, a lot of people were like, oh, I really appreciate the money, but like, I don't need it. I do this for fun. So I let them choose where the money goes. They can either choose to take the funds or they fill out a form and they can say, I want to donate it to your Extra Life campaign. Or I'd rather it go to another player that I know needs the money more. Or I want it to stay inside of the channel and help support you this month as you pay for your Zoom accounts, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, so no, I was talking to one of my other guests about the misconception of Patreon. We have a Patreon page, and like a lot of this stuff is paid up front. Like some people, like they put up a certain quality and they're like, ooh, if we make our goal, you know, we'll get better mics, or if we make our this, you know, you'll help us. And the audience can literally, you know, give you money on Patreon and they'll see the result. But to be known in a virtual vast sea of podcasts, what we decided to do was foot the bill ourselves and have thrown, you know, a lot of money into the better mic as soon as we could afford it, the better whatever up front. And we got into Patreon later. So now it's like, hey, help us pay down our credit cards and our massive debt. You know,
it's kind of a you know,
But there still is that, and, you know, but if you can help, then it's easier to manage, and we can bring you more, you know, we will bring you more content, more this, more that type of thing. You talked about going back to school, a couple optional questions. So right now, besides that 25-hour fun but glorious work week, what do you do for a living? I've met doctors, lawyers, ditch diggers, you name it, play this game thanks to 1990 something, and Harry Potter made, you know, geeking out cool. Right. What, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living right now?
So currently, so when I went back to grad school, I decided that I was passionate about the arts, but I didn't want to be a starving artist anymore. And I was tired of seeing my friends be starving artists. So I wanted to get into the business side of the arts. How do we make the arts thrive and not suffer? So I went back to school and got my master's degree in arts business and leadership. And I now work in nonprofit arts. So I've worked for everything from history museums to art museums to theaters. I've worked briefly at a radio station. So if it is considered art or creative media, I have a business degree basically with a focus in marketing. So over the years that has led me to a slew of different jobs. But currently I am the marketing director for a comedy and improv house here in Atlanta called Dad's Garage. We're a 25-year comedy house, and that's what we do. We're relatively well known. We have a lot of celebrity
take it to the streets, you know, not just on the net, you know. The little pub stage and everyone snaps their fingers at you, that kind of thing. Well, we're not that beatnik, but sure. We do think more Whose Line Is It Anyway style improv, like proper comedy. I do know, you know, of the and what a great show.
No, yeah, right. Actually,
Inspiring.
one of our theater's like best friends is Colin Mockery from Whose Line Is It Anyways. He comes into the theater multiple times a year and just does improv with us because he loves it. He's one of the greatest humans in the world.
You know, within the last few years, Carol Burnett finally won a Lifetime Achievement Award, and
Much deserved.
that is something that's actually before my time, but being a little kid watching my parents watch these shows, and then it leads you in, you know, to that professionalism. But and people are like, what are you talking about? Carol Burnett show was one of the first shows that was aired live where the staff would mess with the producers by literally in the middle of a skit trying to break each other up and forcing your co-actor to break character. And
Because
what the
people
producers
love that.
yeah, well now, but at the time, back in the 70s, you know, it was a nightmare. At first, they got in so much trouble until they saw that how the live audience there at the studio reacted to it, you know, that kind of thing. And then you have awesome shows that spun off a Canadian show called Bizarre with John Byner, and that kind of thing, where it just became a staple. And now it's, well, Whose Line Is It Anyway? Sorry, more improv than like a scripted skit, but
or like sketch comedy, which is like their SNLs, and Carol Burnett was like sketch comedy, but we do some of that too. You know, we even write scripted shows on an annual. We do a couple scripted pieces, like a proper, you know, theater, meaning we like take a script and rehearse it, but all of our scripts are written internally by our ensemble, so they're all original works. And we have a very nerdy ensemble, so I also have the joy of getting to market some of the nerdiest like theater productions ever. Like, for example, this past year, we remounted a show that they wrote in 2012 called The Wrath of Con, C-O-N. And it's all about con life. And it looks actually at Dragon Con, which is, of course, our local set in the year 2012, and what it's like to like go to a con. They call it the con, and what con life is kind of like. And then they wrote a sequel to it called The Wrath of Con 2 Into Darkness. And Wrath of Con 2 Into Darkness is kind of like I said, it's a sequel that looks at the change of the guard when it comes to the nerd culture, how it went from being this thing that, you know, a small niche, and now you've got like frat boys dressing as the 300 showing up at places like Dragon Con, right? Like that nerd culture has expanded, and it's different than it was. And some of the old, like some of us feel just kind of old when people are walking around like Snapchatting, and all they want to do are they're like, you know, their video game tournaments and stuff. And so it's just really, it's a really fun nerdy show that was written by our ensemble because of their experiences being nerds and then growing old and still trying to be nerds, you know, which is cool.
One of the most fun things of merchandise I ever bought was we were walking through a Walmart with my wife, and they had these center aisles, and there's these giant pillows, and I got this giant crushed black velvet pillow that's embossed in white, says "Never Grow Up."
Yes.
And it's like, that is going in my house, and I'm going to take pictures of it, and I actually have it on my Patreon page, you know, just that kind of like, you know, why? Being grown up's overrated, you know. Yeah. You sound incredibly busy. I had no idea how fortunate we were to have you on the show. But before I let you go, I do have one last set of questions.
Sure.
What is your latest project, and like what's in the works for you in the future?
Yeah.
So, it's on the horizon for the dog.
Yeah, what's on the horizon?
On the horizon. You see
the big project right now, my personal project, so the one that's like on my channel, not me being out somewhere else. And one on my channel is a Teens in Space campaign called 2284 Futuristical Flash, which is basically my ode to Xenon Girl of the 21st Century. If that tells you anything about what I grew up with. So it's very 80s retro, very neon flash, very David Bowie inspired. I love it. It's one of my
well, like the new they're making fun of this kind of thing in the new Wonder Woman movie.
Yes.
You know,
yeah,
like and the last season of Stranger Things when they takes her shopping to the mall, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm a preteen again, because
so that's my little flash, and it's been we're in the middle of that campaign, but really I guess for my channel from now and through June, I will be running pretty much only Renegade games on my channel. Renegade games used to only make board games, and they recently won the ENnie this past year for Kids on Bikes for best like family friendly game. So I dropped by their booth actually at Gen Con. You want to talk about cons? I dropped by and introduced myself, and the woman who handles all their marketing was there, and she's like, "I know you. Here, have some games." And she loaded me up with like lots and lots of books. Like I was dragging them out. They were so heavy.
Oh no.
So I'm playing through pretty much all Renegade games. So next up, actually, I'm very excited is a new tabletop they've released based on a board game series called the North Sea Epilogues, and it's Viking RPG, and I will be playing with an all-female group. So we'll be doing all-female Vikings type setting, and following that, I'm very excited. This is the other game. The first time I picked up the book and was like, I have to run this game. And you know what? You're going to look at the front and be like, oh, it totally matches her aesthetic. Look at this. Does that not scream, Dot? It's called Overlight, and it's a fantasy.
You're getting a lot of reflection there. Can you just bring it up one more time?
Let's see if I can bring it.
Do it slow. Well, bring it closer, but a little more of a tilt because it's kind of bleeding out in the.
I'm going to tilt it this way. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, nice Khopesh sword.
Isn't it Yeah, beautiful. Like the edging. I don't know if you can see that. It might be too bright a little bit.
No, it's my green screen. The green screen's killing it, but I get it. I get it. That's really neat.
It's called Overlight, and it is a fantasy RPG, but it is based, they call it a kaleidoscopic adventure. It's based on color and light, and it takes heavy influence from 70s psychedelic art. So I'm totally here for it. And I literally, there are very few, like I said, sometimes you pick stuff up and you're just like, I connect.
Okay, so I could see that into it, like a description kind of thing. But how does that work? Like, how do you work color in a game mechanic? Can you give us a taste or an idea of a color?
Yes, I can. So I will be running Overlight. I'm running an extended campaign starting in April, I believe, on my channel. So those are the kind of things coming up. But so Overlight is basically the idea is that humans were given gifts from the gods that we, of course, misused. And as penance for our misuse of them, they shattered the world into 7 shards that are floating islands on top of one another. Oh, I wonder if the pages, God, the art in this book, I wish I could show it to all of you at home. It's so beautiful. So they broke it into 7 shards. Let's see if I can... from top to bottom, you can kind of see it. Okay. The idea is that the great overlight above shines down to the dark water below, basically the empty sea, and these shards float above one another, and each shard is connected to a specific color, and depending on what shards are crossing at what time, light passes through, and the way that color is created by these shards and the way that light passes through things affects everything from kind of their concept of magic in the world to what the connection with these gods that have left us behind. But certain creatures in this world have been awakened with very special powers, and they are drawn to create balance. Another color term, right? Create balance. The artist in me is like, I love this game.
I'm sorry, I'm all up in my head just picturing all this kind of thing. Like, wow,
it's so whimsical. This
is the female cast Viking thing you're doing?
No. Oh. That's North Sea Epilogues. This is I'm going to run a totally separate Overlight campaign. Them. First up, it'll be Vikings, and then following that is Overlight. This book is so interesting. So, and magic, it's not called magic, it's called chroma. And
ooh,
yeah, right.
See, that hits home. Now, for those of you at home that don't understand, the idea that your chroma key is balancing a certain amount of color in your green screen or whatever, it does actually mean technically something different, but it's a technical term that helps our green screens come to life. Right.
So all of you at home may understand that, but they call it chroma, and depending on which shard that you're from, will imbue with a different kind of chroma. And chroma is activated by our emotions. So one of the examples that they give in the book that I thought was just so, it really impacted me when I read it was, the example is like you're a kid on the streets, and you've spent all day begging people for coin, trying to get food and these kind of things, and nobody gives it to you. So at the end of the night, the fire that warms your body is you create from the chroma of anger.
Oh, okay.
Right? That the fire can only be created like by our emotions. You can only cast that chroma. And because of the experience that you've had, it will manifest in certain ways. And so it's just this really interesting kind of bizarre take on fantasy. They make it very clear at the top, like, this is not your Tolkien fantasy. There are no elves. There are no dwarves. You're not going to find anything that we know in terms of like fantastical, like modern day fantasy. This is a very obscure kind of world and place that has been affected over time by both the emptiness that has been there and the ever-changing landscape of the shards.
And this is called Chroma Light?
It's called Overlight.
Overlight. Sorry,
Overlight.
Overlight.
Mhm.
You know, you keep mentioning your channel. What's the name of your channel specifically? I don't think we've actually.
little_red_dot. It's just twitch.tv /little_red_dot. One T. I did manage to claim it on Twitch.
Okay. Okay. Well, I got to say, you have been an absolute delight to ask
thanks.
questions. Have put up with all my tangents, with doubling down on tangents of your own, so I don't look so bad.
I was like, don't you worry. We'll go on tangents, but I got you.
I've been speaking with Chelsea, known as Little Red Dot. You can find her on Twitter. You can watch her. I've been watching her a little bit with Michael Hunt in Unmade Gaming. She has her own Twitch channel and some really cool original content, obviously, coming up. And
you know
wow,
what? I got a YouTube as well. So if you want to go
okay.
back and watch some of my past stuff, there is a YouTube out there.
And it's Little Red Dot YouTube? YouTube Little Red Dot?
/Little Red Dot.
Because if I type YouTube into Little Red Dot, all I'm going to see is like Shanghai city pictures. Like,
yeah, it should. I believe it's like, what is it? YouTube.com/C for channel /Little Red Dot, and it should come up, I think is how it works. But yeah, you should be able to search me. I have a few campaigns. I do a monthly community game called Sunday Fun Day, where I drink mimosas from a moonshine jug. You know,
drinking and gaming. Oh, I've never heard of that. No.
So that's a lot of fun. And actually, those community games are open to the public. So if you're out there listening and you just want a chance to play some RPGs, I do anywhere between 6 to 9 hours one Sunday a month for the community.
Oh, that's great. Well, we'll definitely hit you up for every single link that you mentioned and get as many of them into the bios
of course.
Not just the podcast, but the vodcast version of this. Chelsea, thank you so much for being on the show today. And we will see you next time on Attack of